Lisa always laughed when people asked her what she did for work. "Oh, just boring government stuff," she would say with a shrug. "You know, paperwork and meetings." Her family bought it completely. Her mom would nod and change the subject. Her dad would joke about tax dollars being wasted on desk jobs. Even her own brother thought she spent her days filing reports in some windowless office building. The truth was much more complicated than that. Lisa worked for a federal agency that most people had never heard of. She wasn't allowed to talk about the details, even with family. What they didn't know was that she had spent the last year and a half living as someone else entirely. Different name, different backstory, different life. She had learned to speak with a slight accent that wasn't her own. She had memorized a fake childhood full of details that rolled off her tongue like real memories. For 18 months, she had been deep undercover, working to take down a network of people who were selling stolen government secrets. It was the kind of work that kept her awake at night, always looking over her shoulder, always wondering if today would be the day her cover got blown. She had to be perfect every single day. One wrong word, one slip of the tongue, and everything could fall apart. The training for this kind of work wasn't something they taught in regular police academies. Lisa had gone through months of preparation before they ever let her out in the field. She learned how to fight without looking like she knew how to fight. She practiced reading people's body language until she could spot a lie from across the room. They taught her how to stay calm when someone was pointing a gun at her face, how to think clearly when everything around her was chaos. But the hardest part wasn't the physical training or even the mental games. It was learning to live as someone completely different. She had to forget her own habits, her own way of talking, even the way she walked. Everything about Lisa had to disappear so that her fake identity could take over. Some days she almost forgot who she really was underneath it all. The operation had finally ended 3 weeks ago. After a year and a half of careful work, they had enough evidence to arrest the whole network. Lisa had watched from a safe distance as FBI agents stormed into buildings across 3 different states, rounding up everyone they had been tracking. It was satisfying to see it all come together, but it was also exhausting. Now she was officially on leave. Real leave, not the fake kind where you're still working but pretending to be on vacation. Her supervisor had actually ordered her to take time off. "You need to remember how to be yourself again," he had told her. "Go visit your family. Sleep in your own bed. Do normal people things." So here she was driving across 3 states to visit her brother and his family. It felt strange to be in her own car, using her real driver's license, not having to check her rearview mirror every few minutes. For the first time in months, she could just be Lisa again. No fake accent, no made-up stories about her childhood, no need to constantly stay in character. The drive was supposed to be relaxing, but old habits die hard. She still found herself checking the cars around her, looking for anyone who might be following. She still chose gas stations based on how many exit routes they had. When she stopped for food, she sat facing the door. These weren't things she did on purpose anymore. They had just become part of who she was. Her brother's family lived in a quiet suburb outside Phoenix. Nice neighborhood, good schools. The kind of place where the biggest crime was probably someone not bringing their trash cans in fast enough. It would be a good place to decompress and remember what normal life felt like. The sun was getting lower in the sky when she finally reached the outskirts of town. She was maybe an hour away from her brother's house, but she needed to stop. 6 hours of driving had left her stiff and tired. Plus, she wanted to pick up some coffee and maybe a small gift for her nephew. The kid was 8 years old and obsessed with anything that had wheels. She spotted a shopping center up ahead and decided that would work perfectly. It looked like a typical suburban mall with all the usual stores. Nothing fancy, but it would have what she needed. She pulled into the parking lot and started looking for a spot. The lot was busier than she expected for a Tuesday afternoon. Families with kids, elderly couples taking their time, teenagers hanging out near the food court entrance. It was the kind of normal, everyday scene that she had missed during her time undercover. No one was watching her. No one cared who she was or why she was there. It felt like a small miracle. She found a parking spot toward the back of the lot, away from the main crowd. It wasn't that she was being paranoid exactly. It was just that after 18 months of always having an escape plan, some habits were hard to break. Besides, she had always preferred having some space around her car. Less chance of door dings and easier to get out if she needed to leave quickly. As she turned off the engine, Lisa took a deep breath and smiled. This was it. The start of her real vacation. No fake identity to maintain. No dangerous people to watch, no cover story to remember. Just a normal woman visiting her family, stopping at a normal mall to buy normal things. She grabbed her purse and locked the car. The afternoon air was warm but not too hot, with a light breeze that felt good after being cooped up in the car all day. She could see the coffee shop from where she was parked, and next to it was a toy store that would definitely have something her nephew would like. Lisa had no way of knowing that her choice of parking spot was about to change everything. She had no idea that someone had been watching her pull in, someone who was already angry about something completely unrelated to her. She couldn't have predicted that her quiet afternoon was about to become anything but quiet. All she wanted was coffee and a toy car. What she was about to get was a reminder that even on vacation, trouble has a way of finding people like her. Beverly Patterson was having the worst week of her entire life, and that was saying something. 3 days ago, her husband came home from his job at the insurance company and told her they were letting him go. 22 years with the same company, and they just decided they didn't need him anymore. Just like that. No warning, no explanation that made any sense. Then yesterday, her teenage daughter came home with a report card that looked like a disaster. Math, science, history, failing everything except art class. And when Beverly tried to talk to her about it, the girl just rolled her eyes and said, "Whatever. Mom, school is stupid anyway." Beverly had wanted to ground her for a month, but her husband said they needed to be supportive during this difficult time. Supportive. Right, like being supportive was going to pay the mortgage or fix their daughter's grades or make any of this mess go away. Now here she was on Tuesday afternoon, trying to get groceries with money they couldn't really afford to spend, and some stranger had taken her parking spot. Not just any parking spot, her parking spot. The one she had been using every Tuesday for the past 3 years. It was close enough to the store entrance that she didn't have to walk too far with heavy bags, but not so close that it was always taken by other people. Beverly had a routine, and routines mattered. Especially now when everything else in her life was falling apart. She would drive to the shopping center every Tuesday at exactly 2:30 in the afternoon. She would park in the same spot, go to the same grocery store, buy the same basic items, and be home by 4 o'clock to start dinner. But today, when she pulled into the lot at exactly 2:30 like she always did, there was a car already in her spot. A rental car with out-of-state plates, which made it even worse. Some tourist or business traveler who didn't even live here had just waltzed in and taken what was rightfully hers. Beverly sat in her car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. She could feel her blood pressure rising, could feel that familiar anger building up in her chest. This was not the day to mess with her. This was absolutely not the day. She watched as a woman got out of the rental car. Mid-30s maybe, average height, nothing particularly special about her. The woman stretched like she had been driving for a long time, then started walking toward the stores without a care in the world, like she hadn't just ruined Beverly's entire day by taking her spot. That's when Beverly snapped. She pulled her car up right behind the rental, close enough that the woman wouldn't be able to back out easily. Then she got out and started walking fast toward the woman, her anger building with every step. "Excuse me," Beverly called out, her voice carrying across the parking lot. "Excuse me." The woman turned around and Beverly got her first good look at her. She looked tired but alert, like someone who had been traveling but was still paying attention to what was going on around her. Her clothes were simple, jeans and a plain shirt, but something about the way she stood made Beverly even more angry. The woman looked calm. Too calm. "Can I help you?" the woman asked politely. Beverly felt her face getting hot. The politeness made it worse somehow, like this woman thought she could just smile and make everything okay. "You absolutely can help me," Beverly said, walking closer. "You can help me by moving your car right now. That's my parking spot. I've been parking there every Tuesday for 3 years, and I won't have some out-of-towner thinking they can just waltz in here and take whatever they want." The woman's expression didn't change, which only made Beverly more furious. Why wasn't she apologizing? Why wasn't she rushing to move her car? Beverly was clearly upset, clearly in the right here, and this stranger was just standing there like nothing was wrong. "I understand you're frustrated," the woman said in that same polite tone, "but this is a public parking lot. I'm only going to be here for a few minutes. Only a few minutes." Like that made any difference. Like Beverly was supposed to just wait around until this woman decided she was done with her shopping. Like Beverly's time didn't matter at all. A few minutes? Beverly's voice was getting louder now, and she could see other people in the parking lot starting to look their way. Good. Maybe some witnesses would make this woman realize how unreasonable she was being. I don't care if it's only 1 minute. That's my spot. I have been parking there every single Tuesday for 3 years. The woman took a small step back, but she still looked calm, still looked like she thought she was in control of this situation. Beverly could feel her anger reaching a boiling point. This was exactly the kind of entitled behavior that was wrong with the world. People thought they could just do whatever they wanted without considering how it affected other people. "Ma'am, I understand you have a routine," the woman said. "But legally, this is first come, first served. I got here first today, legally." This woman was actually going to stand there and lecture Beverly about what was legal, like Beverly was some kind of criminal for wanting to park in the same spot she always parked in. Like this was about laws instead of basic human decency. Legal? Beverly's voice cracked a little. You want to talk about legal? How about the legal right of a longtime customer to park where she always parks? How about some common courtesy? A few more people had stopped to watch now. Beverly could see them whispering to each other, probably judging her for making a scene. But she didn't care anymore. She was tired of being polite. She was tired of people walking all over her. Her husband's company had walked all over him. Her daughter was walking all over both of them, and now this stranger thought she could walk all over Beverly too. Well, not today. Look, the woman said, and Beverly could hear something different in her voice now, still polite but with an edge to it. I'm just trying to grab some coffee and get back on the road. I'm not trying to cause any problems. But she was causing problems. She was causing a huge problem by being inconsiderate and selfish, and acting like Beverly's feelings didn't matter. Beverly had tried being reasonable. She had explained the situation clearly. She had given this woman every chance to do the right thing. Now it was time for a different approach. We'll see about that, Beverly said, and she started walking toward the rental car. If this woman wasn't going to move her car voluntarily, then Beverly would just have to take matters into her own hands. She had every right to defend her parking spot. She had every right to stand up for herself. Behind her, she could hear the woman saying something, but Beverly wasn't listening anymore. She was focused on the car, on making her point, on finally taking control of something in her life. She had no idea that she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. Lisa watched in disbelief as the angry woman marched straight toward her rental car. This was escalating way beyond what she had expected from a simple parking dispute. Her training kicked in automatically, and she found herself assessing the situation like she would any potential threat. The woman was clearly agitated, moving with jerky, aggressive motions. Her face was flushed red and her hands were clenched into fists. Lisa had seen this kind of behavior before during her undercover work. People who were past the point of rational thinking, operating purely on emotion and anger. "Ma'am, please step away from my vehicle," Lisa said, her voice taking on a different tone. It was still polite, but there was an authority behind it now that hadn't been there before. It was the voice she used when she needed people to understand that she was serious. But the woman wasn't listening. She had reached the car and was trying to open the driver's side door. When she found it locked, she started pulling on the handle harder, as if she could somehow force it open through sheer determination. "Ma'am, you need to stop what you're doing right now," Lisa said more firmly, taking a few steps closer. "You cannot touch someone else's property." That's when things went from bad to much worse. The woman spun around to face Lisa, and there was something wild in her eyes now, something that told Lisa this situation was about to become dangerous. "Don't you dare tell me what I can and can't do," the woman shouted. "This is my parking spot and I'm not going anywhere until you move this car." Lisa could see that a small crowd was starting to gather. People were keeping their distance, but they were definitely watching. Some of them had their phones out, probably recording the whole thing. Lisa made a mental note to be very careful about how she handled this. The last thing she needed was to end up in some viral video. The woman had turned back to the car and was now peering through the windows trying to see inside. Lisa kept moving closer, ready to intervene if necessary. She had dealt with much more dangerous situations than this, but something about the woman's behavior was setting off alarm bells in her head. Then the woman did something that changed everything. She tried the door handle again, and this time it opened. Lisa realized with growing concern that she must not have locked it properly when she got out. The woman immediately started rifling through the center console and glove compartment. Ma'am, you need to get out of my car immediately, Lisa said, her voice now carrying the full weight of her authority. What you're doing is illegal. But the woman was completely focused on searching through Lisa's belongings. She pulled out receipts, threw around some loose change, and then her hand closed around something that made Lisa's blood run cold. It was her federal credentials. The woman held up the black leather wallet triumphantly, waving it in the air like some kind of trophy. "Oh, look at this," she said mockingly. "Miss Important Government Worker thinks she's special. Well, guess what? I don't care what kind of fake badge you have. You're still parked in my spot." Lisa felt her heart rate spike. Those credentials weren't supposed to see the light of day during her vacation. They contained her real name, her real position, information that could be very dangerous in the wrong hands. But more immediately, this woman had just committed several serious crimes. "Give me those credentials and step away from the vehicle," Lisa said, her voice now carrying the unmistakable tone of law enforcement. "You have just committed breaking and entering, theft of federal property, and interference with a federal agent." The woman laughed, actually laughed as if Lisa had just told her a joke. "Federal agent? Right. And I'm the Queen of England. You can't fool me with some fake badge you probably bought online." That's when the woman made the mistake that would haunt her for years to come. Still holding Lisa's credentials, she reached out and grabbed Lisa's arm with her free hand. "If you won't move this car yourself," the woman said, starting to pull, "then I'll just have to move you." The moment the woman's hand made contact with her arm, Lisa's training took over completely. 18 months of living undercover, pretending to be someone else, staying in character no matter what. All of that disappeared in an instant. What emerged was the federal agent who had been trained to handle exactly this kind of situation. Lisa's response was so fast and smooth that most of the watching crowd didn't even see it happen. She twisted her arm in a specific way that broke the woman's grip without causing any injury, then stepped back into a defensive stance that put her in perfect position to control the situation. "Ma'am, I am a federal law enforcement officer," Lisa said clearly, loud enough for all the recording phones to pick up. "You have just committed assault on a federal agent. I need you to drop those credentials and step away from the vehicle immediately." The woman stood there for a moment, looking confused. It was as if her brain was trying to process what had just happened. 1 second she had been in control, pulling the stranger around like a rag doll. The next second, she was facing someone who moved like a trained fighter and spoke with the unmistakable authority of law enforcement. But instead of backing down, the woman's anger seemed to double. Maybe it was embarrassment at being so easily outmaneuvered. Maybe it was frustration that her intimidation tactics weren't working. Or maybe she was just so far past rational thinking that she couldn't stop herself. "I don't care what you think you are," she screamed and lunged forward again, this time trying to grab Lisa with both hands. What happened next was like watching a professional dancer perform a routine they had practiced 1,000 times. Lisa sidestepped the woman's charge, caught her extended arm, and used the woman's own momentum to guide her face down onto the warm asphalt of the parking lot. The whole thing took maybe 3 seconds from start to finish. The woman found herself on the ground, her arm gently but firmly controlled behind her back, completely unable to move but unharmed. Lisa was kneeling beside her, one hand maintaining the restraint, the other hand free to defend herself if necessary. "I am Agent Lisa Chen with the Department of Homeland Security," Lisa said in a calm, professional voice that carried clearly across the now silent parking lot. "You are under citizen's arrest for assault on a federal officer, theft of federal property, and interference with a federal investigation." The watching crowd was completely silent now. Several people had their phones pointed at the scene, but nobody was making a sound. It was as if they couldn't quite believe what they had just witnessed. The woman on the ground was breathing hard, whether from exertion or shock, Lisa couldn't tell. "This isn't happening," the woman kept saying. "This can't be happening." But it was happening. And in about 2 minutes, when mall security arrived, followed shortly by local police, the woman was going to learn just how serious the consequences could be for attacking a federal agent. Lisa stayed exactly where she was, maintaining the restraint with minimal force, waiting for backup to arrive. She had been trained for situations exactly like this, and she knew that the most important thing now was to stay calm and let the system work the way it was supposed to. The woman's day was about to get much, much worse. The silence in the parking lot was deafening. Beverly Patterson lay face down on the warm asphalt, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. One moment she had been in control, fighting for what was rightfully hers. The next moment she was on the ground with her arm twisted behind her back, held there by someone who clearly knew exactly what they were doing. Department of Homeland Security, she heard the woman say again, and the words felt like ice water in Beverly's veins. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake. Real federal agents didn't just show up in suburban shopping center parking lots. They definitely didn't get into fights over parking spots with ordinary people like Beverly. But the woman holding her down felt very real. Her grip was firm but not painful, applied with the kind of precision that spoke of serious training, and her voice had completely changed from the polite, tired traveler Beverly had confronted just minutes ago. Now she sounded like someone who was used to being obeyed without question. "Ma'am, I'm going to help you sit up now," Lisa said calmly, "but I need you to stay calm and keep your hands where I can see them." Beverly felt herself being guided into a sitting position with the same careful control that had put her on the ground. She looked up at the woman who had just restrained her, really looked at her for the first time. The exhausted traveler was gone. In her place was someone who moved with quiet confidence, someone whose eyes were constantly scanning the area around them, someone who looked like they could handle whatever came next. The crowd of onlookers was growing larger, but they were keeping their distance. Beverly could see phones pointed in her direction, recording her humiliation for the world to see. She wanted to tell them to stop, to go away, to mind their own business, but she couldn't seem to find her voice. "Is mall security on the way?" Lisa asked someone in the crowd, though she never took her eyes off Beverly. "Yes, ma'am," came a voice from somewhere behind Beverly. They called the police too. Beverly's stomach dropped even further. Police. This was really happening. She was going to be arrested in front of all these people for attacking a federal agent. Her husband was going to find out. Her daughter was going to find out. The neighbors were going to find out. Her whole life was about to become a public spectacle. "I didn't know," Beverly whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't know who you were." Lisa's expression softened slightly, but she remained alert and ready. "That doesn't change what happened, ma'am. You broke into my vehicle, stole federal property, and then physically attacked me. Those are serious crimes." Beverly looked around at the faces staring down at her. Some looked curious, some looked shocked, some looked like they were enjoying the entertainment. But none of them looked sympathetic. None of them looked like they understood that she was just a normal person who had made a terrible mistake. "My credentials," Lisa said, extending her free hand. "I need them back." Beverly realized she was still clutching the black leather wallet. She looked down at it, seeing it clearly for the first time. It wasn't some fake badge bought online. It was the real thing, with official seals and holographic security features and a photo of the woman sitting next to her. Agent Lisa Chen, Department of Homeland Security criminal investigator. With shaking hands, Beverly handed over the credentials. Lisa took them and quickly checked to make sure everything was still there before tucking them safely away. "I have 3 kids," Beverly said suddenly, though she wasn't sure why. "My husband just lost his job. I was just trying to get groceries." Lisa studied her for a moment. Beverly could see something that might have been sympathy in her eyes, but her voice remained professional. "I understand you're going through a difficult time, but that doesn't justify what you did here today." The sound of sirens was getting closer now. Beverly could see a mall security vehicle pulling into the parking lot, followed by what looked like several police cars. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. "Am I going to jail?" she asked, her voice cracking. "That depends on a lot of factors," Lisa said. "The important thing right now is that you cooperate with the officers and tell them the truth about what happened." The first security guard to reach them was a young man who looked like he had never dealt with anything more serious than shoplifting. When he saw Lisa's credentials, his eyes went wide. "Ma'am, are you injured?" he asked Lisa. "Do you need medical attention?" "I'm fine," Lisa replied. "But I need you to secure the scene until the police arrive. Make sure nobody disturbs any evidence." Beverly realized that meant her fingerprints were all over Lisa's car, that everything she had touched was now part of a criminal investigation. She thought about the phones that had been recording, about the witnesses who had seen everything. There was no way to take any of this back. The police officers who arrived a few minutes later were clearly experienced. They took one look at the situation and immediately understood the seriousness of what had happened. Beverly found herself being helped to her feet and placed in the back of a patrol car, while Lisa gave her statement. Through the car window, Beverly could see Lisa talking to the officers. She moved with the kind of confidence that came from having done this many times before. She answered their questions clearly and professionally, occasionally gesturing toward the car or toward the spot where the confrontation had taken place. One of the officers came over to talk to Beverly. He was older, with gray hair and the kind of weathered face that suggested he had seen everything at least twice. "Ma'am, I need to inform you of your rights," he said, and began reciting the Miranda warning that Beverly had heard on television shows, but never thought would apply to her. As he spoke, Beverly's mind wandered to her family. Her husband would be home from his job search in a few hours, expecting dinner and maybe some good news about her day. Her daughter would be coming home from school, probably planning to spend the evening complaining about her teachers or her friends or whatever teenage crisis was occupying her mind today. Instead, they were going to find out that Beverly had been arrested for attacking a federal agent in a shopping center parking lot, over a parking spot. The absurdity of it was almost too much to bear. "Do you understand these rights as I have explained them to you?" the officer asked. Beverly nodded, though she wasn't sure she understood anything anymore. How had her life gone so wrong so quickly? How had a simple trip to the grocery store turned into the worst day of her life? But as she sat in the back of the police car, watching Lisa continue to handle the situation with calm professionalism, Beverly began to understand something important. This wasn't just bad luck or a misunderstanding. This was the consequence of her own choices. She had let her anger control her actions, and now she was going to have to face the results. The federal agent she had attacked was being more patient and professional than Beverly had any right to expect. But that didn't change the fact that Beverly had committed serious crimes against someone who was just trying to buy coffee and continue her journey. Now all Beverly could do was hope that somehow, some way she might be able to find a path through the mess she had created. 3 hours later, Beverly Patterson walked out of the county detention center feeling like she had aged 10 years in a single afternoon. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with the same relentless energy that had been driving her crazy since they brought her in. But now she was finally free to leave. Free, but not unchanged. The woman who walked out of that building was different from the one who had gone in. The anger that had been burning inside her for days was gone, replaced by something much more complicated. Shame, certainly. Regret, absolutely. But also a strange kind of clarity that she hadn't felt in a long time. The desk sergeant handed her a manila envelope containing her personal belongings. "You're lucky," he said without looking up from his paperwork. "Agent Chen decided not to press federal charges. You're being released with a warning." Beverly stared at him. "A warning? That's it?" "That's it," he confirmed. "But let me be clear about something. This goes in your file. If you ever do anything like this again, anywhere in the country, they'll throw the book at you. Federal assault charges, theft charges, the whole 9 yards. Agent Chen gave you a gift today. Don't waste it." As Beverly walked through the parking lot toward her car, she thought about that gift. She had attacked a federal agent, stolen government property, and caused a public scene that was probably already spreading across social media. By all rights, she should be facing years in prison and thousands of dollars in fines. Instead, she was going home to her family. The drive back to her house gave her time to think about what had really happened in that shopping center parking lot. It wasn't really about the parking spot, she realized now. The parking spot was just the final straw in a week that had already pushed her past her breaking point. Her husband losing his job, her daughter's failing grades, the constant stress of bills and responsibilities and trying to hold everything together. All of that had been building up inside her like pressure in a volcano. The federal agent had just been in the wrong place at the wrong time when Beverly finally exploded. But that didn't excuse what she had done. Agent Chen had been minding her own business, just trying to get some coffee before continuing her journey. She hadn't deserved to be attacked by a stranger having the worst week of her life. Beverly pulled into her driveway and sat in her car for a moment, looking at her house. Her husband's car was already there, which meant he was home from another day of job hunting. The lights were on in the kitchen, which meant her daughter was probably working on homework, or at least pretending to. Normal life was waiting for her inside that house. Her family had no idea what she had been through today. No idea how close she had come to destroying everything they had built together. Part of her wanted to go inside and pretend it had never happened, to carry this secret forever and never speak of it again. But she knew that wouldn't work. The old Beverly might have tried to hide from her mistakes, but the woman who walked out of that detention center couldn't do that anymore. She found her husband in the kitchen, making sandwiches for dinner. He looked tired but not defeated, which was more than she had expected given everything they were dealing with. "How was your day?" he asked, the same question he asked every day. Beverly took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and you're probably going to want to sit down." The next hour was one of the most difficult of Beverly's life. She told her husband everything. The anger she had been carrying, the way she had snapped at a complete stranger, the humiliation of being arrested in front of a crowd of onlookers. She watched his face change from confusion to shock, to something that might have been disappointment. But he didn't yell at her. He didn't tell her she was stupid or reckless or any of the things she had been telling herself all afternoon. Instead, he pulled her into a hug and held her while she cried for the first time in weeks. "We'll get through this," he said quietly. "We've gotten through worse." Their daughter took the news about as well as could be expected from a teenager. There was eye-rolling and dramatic sighs and comments about how her life was now ruined, because her mother was probably going to be all over the internet. But underneath the drama, Beverly could see that her daughter was worried about her. That night, Beverly lay in bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about Agent Chen. She wondered if the agent had made it to wherever she was going. She wondered if she had family waiting for her, people who cared about her safety and wanted her to come home in one piece. Beverly realized she didn't even know where Agent Chen had been traveling to or why. All she knew was that a trained federal agent had been kind enough to give her a second chance when she didn't deserve one. The story spread through their neighborhood within a few days, just as Beverly had known it would. But the reactions weren't what she had expected. Instead of judgment and mockery, most people seemed to understand that Beverly had been going through a rough time. Several neighbors stopped by to check on the family and offer help with groceries or job leads for her husband. Beverly's brother-in-law, who worked in construction, heard about her husband's situation and offered him a temporary position until he could find something permanent. It wasn't the same salary as his old job, but it was enough to keep them afloat while they figured out their next steps. Her daughter's math teacher, who had heard about the family's struggles, connected them with a free tutoring program that helped students who were falling behind. Within a month, her daughter's grades started to improve. It was as if the worst day of Beverly's life had somehow opened doors that had been closed before. People who might never have known about their struggles were now offering help and support. But the biggest change was in Beverly herself. The anger that had been eating her alive was gone, replaced by something she hadn't felt in years: gratitude. She was grateful for her family, grateful for her neighbors, grateful for second chances and new opportunities, and most of all, she was grateful for Agent Chen, the federal agent who had taught her that sometimes the people who look the most ordinary are actually the most extraordinary. The woman who had shown her that real strength isn't about getting your way or fighting for what you think you deserve. It's about choosing kindness even when someone doesn't deserve it. Beverly never saw Agent Chen again, but she thought about her often. She wondered if the agent knew how much that act of mercy had changed not just Beverly's life, but the lives of everyone around her. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected teachers. And sometimes a chance encounter in a shopping center parking lot can change everything.